What happens when the greatest driver of his generation puts on Ferrari red and suddenly looks ordinary? That's the question haunting Maranello right now. Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari was supposed to be the fairy tale ending to a legendary career, the seven-time world champion chasing glory with the most iconic team in motorsport. But after Budapest, that story has shifted from romance to reality. Charles Leclerc lit up qualifying, taking Ferrari's first pole position of the season, igniting tifosi dreams of a turnaround. And Hamilton, he could only manage 12th on the grid. But what shook the paddock even more were his words afterwards. Hamilton called himself useless. He openly admitted the team might even be better off without him. And he hinted at problems within Maranello that weren't going away. For a man who came to Ferrari to cement his legacy, this wasn't just another bad Saturday. This was the moment when the dream began to crack. For the first time in over a decade, Hamilton looked like a man doubting himself. And then came the parallel that no one wanted to speak aloud, but everyone thought instantly: Sebastian Vettel in 2019. A champion reduced to looking like a stranger in a Ferrari built for Leclerc's hands. The similarities are undeniable. And the question now is simple: has Ferrari once again created a car that flatters one driver, while leaving another, even a legend, struggling to adapt? Former Ferrari mechanic Francesco Cigarini believes so. He's seen this movie before. Leclerc's preference for a twitchy, unstable rear end, Vettel unable to adapt, and now Hamilton in danger of following the same path. His advice? Call Vettel and learn from a man who lived this nightmare. But here's where things take an even stranger turn. Reports in Italy suggest Hamilton isn't just failing to copy Leclerc's setups, he's going in the opposite direction entirely, experimenting with extreme configurations that Ferrari engineers describe as not optimal. Which leaves us with the unsettling question: is this really about style, or is there something more fundamental happening? Tonight on Formula Maranello Report, we'll break down exactly what's happening, because the dream of Hamilton at Ferrari is at a crossroads: redemption or repetition. When Hamilton signed with Ferrari, the world rejoiced. It felt like destiny. The greatest driver of his era, dressed in red, chasing the kind of glory that only Ferrari can provide. But beneath the fairy tale, the risk was always there. Ferrari isn't Mercedes. At Mercedes, Hamilton didn't just drive the car, he shaped it. The cars of the hybrid era were built around his feedback, his style, his way of doing things. But Ferrari isn't built like that. Ferrari is already Charles Leclerc's house. The Monegasque has grown up inside the team, endured the heartbreak of fast cars on Saturday that faded on Sunday, and developed an instinctive understanding of Ferrari's unique DNA. The engineers trust him, the tifosi love him, and the car is tuned to his strengths. So Hamilton's challenge was never just about learning a new team. It was about unlearning the habits that made him a champion and rewiring himself for a completely different philosophy. At 40 years old, that's a monumental ask, and Budapest exposed the gap, nearly a full second slower in qualifying than Leclerc. That kind of delta isn't just a matter of comfort, it speaks to a fundamental disconnect. While Leclerc leans into stability, predictability, and balance, Hamilton has been chasing extremes. Ferrari insiders say he's pushed setups to the edge of what the SF25's design can handle. Anti-roll bar stiffness, shock absorber tweaks, wing angles that don't match the car's aero platform. The engineers have even described some of his choices as incompatible with the car's aerodynamic philosophy. And when you try to make a Ferrari something it isn't, consistency collapses, the data becomes unreliable. And in Formula One, unreliable data is a team's worst nightmare. Strategy departments rely on trust in numbers, tire wear, fuel consumption, stint predictions. With Leclerc, those models are dependable. With Hamilton, the variables multiply, and every gamble becomes riskier. That creates tension. Even Riccardo Adami, Hamilton's race engineer, the same man who once guided Vettel during Ferrari's turbulent years, now finds himself caught between ambition and reality. Hamilton's relentless experimentation is admirable, but in Formula One, ambition without alignment can destroy weekends. And so the story of Hamilton at Ferrari isn't just about speed, it's about a driver trying to bend the team toward his way of thinking, while the team expects him to adapt to theirs. That clash of philosophies has defined Ferrari's history before, and now it threatens to define Hamilton's Ferrari career. The technical battle is one side of the story, the psychological battle is the other. Budapest showed us something we haven't seen from Hamilton in more than a decade: self-doubt. He didn't just express frustration, he questioned his place in the team. He questioned his own ability. For a driver who's built his career on mental strength as much as speed, that is alarming. And this is where the Vettel comparison becomes unavoidable. Vettel arrived at Ferrari with 4 titles. By 2019, he looked like a man unraveling, trying to chase Leclerc's style and losing himself in the process. By 2020, he was gone. Hamilton knows this history. He even sought Vettel's advice before ever turning a lap in red, taking notes, copying little habits like handwritten notebooks. And yet, halfway through the season, the nightmare looks hauntingly familiar. The numbers underline it. 14 races in, Leclerc has poles, podiums, and consistent top 5 finishes that keep Ferrari in the fight for second in the constructors' standings. Hamilton, not a single podium. That's not just disappointing, it's politically dangerous. Ferrari is a team that measures greatness with results, not sentiment. Alonso brought podiums, but no title. Vettel brought wins but was undone by Leclerc's consistency. If Hamilton doesn't deliver numbers soon, Ferrari's leadership will see him less as the savior and more as a liability. And make no mistake, the paddock is watching closely. At Mercedes, George Russell has seamlessly stepped into leadership, while young Andrea Kimi Antonelli develops without the political storms Hamilton used to bring. McLaren, with Norris and Piastri, know every point they steal from Ferrari is magnified if only one red car is at the front. And Red Bull, Verstappen doesn't just want to beat Hamilton, he wants to dismantle his myth, to prove that the 7-time champion in Ferrari red is no longer untouchable. Then comes Ferrari's long game. Project 678, the 2026 car for the new regulations, is already on the drawing board. And the driver whose feedback shapes that car will effectively define Ferrari's next era. Right now, that voice belongs to Charles Leclerc. Unless Hamilton aligns quickly, he risks being sidelined in the most important development cycle Ferrari has faced in years. Here's my take. Budapest wasn't just a poor result, it was the moment when Hamilton's Ferrari adventure tipped from dream to danger. We've seen this story before. Alonso came with ambition, left with frustration. Vettel came with 4 titles, left overshadowed. Even Michael Schumacher, the one man who reshaped Ferrari, only did so after years of trust building and structural change. Hamilton doesn't have years, he has months, maybe even weeks, before the balance tilts irreversibly toward Leclerc. The next test is Monza, Ferrari's home. The Tifosi are the most passionate fans in the world, but also the most unforgiving. They won't care about telemetry, setup philosophy, or cultural adjustments. They will demand results. If Leclerc shines and Hamilton falters, the boos will echo through the temple of speed. But if Hamilton delivers, even a podium, the story can change overnight. That's how thin the line is right now. Because let's be clear, Hamilton didn't come to Ferrari for respect. He came for legacy, to prove he could win anywhere, to write the final glorious chapter of his career in red. But Formula One doesn't write legacies in sentiment. It writes them in lap times, podiums, and championships. And right now, Hamilton's Ferrari story is still unwritten. Redemption is possible, but so is repetition. And as always, we'll be here following every twist, every triumph, and every heartbreak, right here on Formula Maranello Report. If you bleed red, if you live for Ferrari like I do, then hit subscribe, drop a like, and share this with a fellow Tifoso. The next race could decide whether Hamilton becomes a Ferrari hero, or just another chapter in Maranello's long history of frustrated champions.